All right, welcome back to ABA Exam Review and the continuation of our latest RBT practice exam, where we're going through the next set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack and practice exams. As always, when you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Every Thursday, you spend half of your day on your college's campus. You always eat at the Student Union around 3 p.m., and you always eat at Subway. Today, you get to the Union and you find that the Subway is closed for the next 2 weeks. Relative to your behavior, not being able to eat Subway is likely blank. All right. Question is asking about the situation relative to your behavior and specifically not being able to eat Subway. So, what is in relation to what is happening in the scenario, not being able to eat Subway? Well, let's examine what happened before that. Typically, on Thursdays, you spend half of your day on your college's campuses, and you always eat at the Student Union around 3 p.m., and you always eat Subway. So we know this has a history. We know that typically your behavior is reinforced for going to the Student Union and getting Subway because you continue to do it. When behavior continues in the future, we consider that behavior reinforced. In this case, your behavior of going to the Union, eating Subway has been reinforced, so you continue to do it. However, today you get to the Union and you find that Subway is closed for the next 2 weeks. So, relative to your behavior, not being able to eat Subway is what? So you get there and now you can't eat Subway. So typically you get there, Subway is open, you can get your Subway. Today, Subway isn't open, you can't get your Subway. So we have to ask ourselves, what is that consequence? Well, the consequence is your reinforcement is withheld. Because when you get to the Union and you get to the Subway, your consequence is reinforcement of eating Subway. Today, you get to the Union, you can't get your Subway. That reinforcement has been withheld. So when reinforcement is withheld, what is that called? A, reinforcement. Well, we just went through why this scenario, not being able to eat Subway, isn't reinforcement. Eating the Subway is reinforcement for going to the Union and eating at Subway. You get Subway. Today, that was withheld. Why is it not punishment? Well, punishment, something is added or something is removed from the scenario. In this case, you do the same thing you always do. You go to the Union, you get to the Subway. Unfortunately, the Subway is closed. So that reinforcement of getting there and getting your sandwich is being withheld from you. And that's the tricky part about punishment and extinction. Extinction, we already have a previously reinforced behavior. In this case, your behavior was previously reinforced. And then that reinforcement that usually occurs doesn't occur. It's withheld. And that's what's happening here. There was no punishing consequence. Nothing was added or taken away as a result of your behavior. Your just typical routine was interrupted because the Subway was closed and your typical reinforcement was no longer available. It was withheld from you. So therefore, your behavior of not being able to eat Subway is now on, or your behavior of eating Subway is now on extinction for at least the next 2 weeks. The most difficult part about punishment and extinction, because they are different things, is identifying, are we adding or taking something away as in a punishing consequence, or are we withholding reinforcement for a previously reinforced behavior? And that's the key. You're either adding or taking away, or you're withholding. Prior to the start of the session with the client, Thomas receives an updated treatment plan from his supervisor. Thomas has never seen this behavior plan before and is confused about certain strategies, but this supervisor tells him to implement it as well as he can immediately. What should Thomas do? All right, we have Thomas here. And what is Thomas's scenario? What is he going to do? Well, he received a treatment plan from a supervisor. Okay, good so far. Thomas has never seen the plan before and is confused. Now, as a technician, remember, you are part of the team. You have a voice. You can assist in making decisions. And it's also very important that you understand what is going on. You always have to maintain competence, and you have to understand the procedures in order to implement the procedures. So if Thomas is confused about strategies, that's an issue. However, the supervisor tells him, implement it as well as you can immediately. That's a problem. If Thomas doesn't know what he's doing, then there's a chance that he's going to make a mistake, which is going to harm the client. And our first priority above all else is do no harm. So Thomas should, under no circumstances, if he doesn't understand a strategy, implement that strategy immediately. What should Thomas do instead? A, follow his supervisor's instructions and implement the plan as well as he can. Well, no, he needs to figure out what this plan is and how to do it before he implements it. He can't just trial and error it. He's dealing with human behavior. He's dealing with humans here. That can lead to harm, and we have to avoid harm. B, tell the supervisor he will implement the plan, but not actually implement it during session. Absolutely not, right? We have to be honest. We have to be truthful. We have to work as a team. We have to collaborate and communicate. Lying to the supervisor is certainly not the best way to handle this. If Thomas feels the need to lie to a supervisor, that's a whole nother issue entirely. C, don't show up a session until he's trained on the new plan. Well, no, there's likely other things Thomas can be doing, given that he's worked with this client before, given this is an updated treatment plan. So he can still go to session. We're missing a key piece here. D, tell his supervisor he is not comfortable with the new plan, but he will work on things he knows how to do currently. Perfect. He's communicating with the supervisor. I don't know the plan or I'm not comfortable with the new plan. However, I will work on things I do know how to do currently. This is a professional way, a collaborative way, a communicative way to handle this situation. He communicates with his supervisor. He continues to work on things he knows how to do. And now the supervisor, it's their responsibility to get Thomas to where he's at a place where he can implement the new plan. Remember, we've got to communicate openly with supervisors, but we never implement anything or do anything we're not comfortable with or we're not competent at doing. So Thomas has taken the right step here. He's not comfortable. I'm not going to do it. Instead, I will work on things I know how to do currently, and then it's up to the supervisor to train him. Your supervising behavior analyst wants you to start pairing edible reinforcers with the voices of your client's parents. What is the most effective way to pair these stimuli? All right, we're talking about pairing here. Pairing involves putting two stimuli together and transferring properties from one to another. Said another way, if we have a stimulus that's reinforcing, let's say edibles, like a Hershey Kiss or a Skittle, and we want to transfer those reinforcing properties to, let's say, the parent's voice, we need to pair those stimuli by presenting them together. And so this is actually a pretty straightforward question, but it can be a little confusing. So we want to start pairing the edible reinforcers with the voices of the client's parents. What's the most effective way to pair stimuli? A, present edibles and parents' voices at the same time. B, present the parent's voice and edibles as a consequence. Or C, present the edibles first and then the parent's voice as a consequence. So what this question is really asking, what is the proper order? And contrary to what a lot of people believe, the best way to pair is to present everything at the same time. If we can present the edibles and the parent's voice at the same time, that's going to be by far the most effective way. Now, it's not always possible to get them at exactly the same time, depending on what the stimuli are, but it is the best way, most effective way, if we can pull it off. The order, one thing going first and one thing going second, is also a way to pair. It could possibly be effective, but it's likely to be less effective than just presenting things at the same time. Trying to time things and picking what goes first and what goes second is not necessarily as effective as just presenting everything at the same time. So if you are able to present and pair stimuli at the same time, that is going to be the most effective way to pair these particular stimuli. Tamika loves to go to the grocery store and name all the fruits in the produce section. When her mom asked her what she is pointing at, she says fruits. Today, Tamika pointed at broccoli and said fruit. What does this represent? All right, so we're looking at what this represents. So let's identify this. Well, Tamika pointed at broccoli and said fruit. Typically, she goes to the store, names all the fruit in the produce section. When her mom asks what she's pointing at, she says fruits. However, today she pointed at broccoli and said fruit. Is that correct? Well, of course not. Broccoli is not a fruit. Tamika should not be pointing at broccoli and saying fruit. So it's great that Tamika is able to go to the store and name fruits in the produce section, right? She's starting to generalize her behavior. Okay. So if she is saying fruit for all these different stimuli, it might be stimulus generalization. The problem is she's now saying fruit in the presence of non fruit. So what does that represent? A, response generalization. Well, remember, with response generalization, you're dealing with two or more responses. Tamika's response here is saying fruit, right? And so we're not generalizing responses. She's not pointing at the broccoli and saying a different responses. She's just pointing at broccoli and saying fruit. So she's not generalizing the response. What about maintenance? Well, with maintenance, there has to be some indication of teaching because maintenance occurs when teaching stops and the behavior is able to continue. There's no indication of teaching, therefore, we can't assume this was taught or that is being maintained. So, what we can say, though, is Tamika has overgeneralized. And what is overgeneralization? Well, it's when a response occurs at the wrong time, at the inappropriate time, too much. And pointing at broccoli and saying fruit, although a product of what she should be doing, right, going and saying fruit and the presence of fruit, she's now overgeneralized that behavior, whether it's due to reinforcement or whatever the case might be. It's now happening too much and at the wrong time. So we've got to shift how we're teaching. Tamika pointing at broccoli and saying fruit represents C, overgeneralization. Eliza prefers to walk to the coffee shop 2 blocks away from her apartment because there is a table by a big window that brings Eliza peace while she studies or completes other work she must do. What is likely reinforcing Eliza's behavior of going to the coffee shop? All right, we're looking at whose behavior? Eliza's, and specifically going to the coffee shop. Let's identify going to the coffee shop in this scenario. Eliza walks to the coffee shop 2 blocks away from her apartment. So we know she's walking to this coffee shop. And when she gets there, there's a table by a big window that brings Eliza peace while she studies or does her work. So by walking to the coffee shop, she can sit by this table and be by this big window. So what is likely reinforcing Eliza's behavior based on this information? A, the coffee at the coffee shop. Did we talk about the coffee at all? No. Coffee was not mentioned at all in this scenario. We don't want to add information. Only use the information given. We know it's a coffee shop. It says nothing about coffee. B, completing work and studying. Well, no, we're not necessarily being reinforced for her completing the work and studying. What's reinforcing her is this big window by the table. Because once she walks to the coffee shop, the consequence is she sits by this big window. And she's actively doing work or studying while sitting by this window, but that's not what's necessarily reinforcing because that's not the consequence of getting to this coffee shop. What about sitting by the big window? Yes. So Eliza walks to the coffee shop, and as a result, she sits by the big window that brings her peace. Is it the walk to the shop? Well, no, that's the response, more or less, right? She walks to the coffee shop 2 blocks away from her apartment because then she gets to sit by the big window, which reinforces her behavior of going back to that coffee shop over and over again. What is likely reinforcing Eliza's behavior? Well, C, sitting by the big window. We can highlight that. There we go. Sitting by the big window. Tyson's mom packs carrots in his lunchbox before Tyson gets out of the car at school. His mom tells him she expects him to eat all of his carrots today. What measurement procedure makes the most sense for the mom to use to see if the carrots are gone? We've got to think about this. First is the measurement procedure question. And what is mom measuring? Well, she wants to see if carrots are gone. Now, what makes the most sense here? Okay, so we've got to think in more practical terms. And no, we don't add information, but we've got to answer the question. And the question is asking what makes the most sense. So we know Tyson's mom packs some carrots. And before Tyson gets out of the car at school, his mom says, eat all of your carrots today. So she's dropping Tyson off, eat the carrots. What makes the most sense for mom to check to see if the carrots are gone? A, she will need to sit with Tyson at lunch. Well, no, that doesn't really make much sense, right? And that's not necessarily a measurement procedure. Sitting there with Tyson at lunch, right? There's other ways she can measure, that makes more sense than having to be there at lunch with Tyson, because all she needs to check are the carrots gone. B, she will have to ask the teacher to record Tyson at lunch. Again, how else can she just see if the carrots are gone? What's going to make the most sense? Well, she can check Tyson's lunchbox after school. Permanent product. Now, could Tyson throw them away? Sure. Could he give them away? Sure. But the question is saying the mom just wants to check if the carrots are gone. And if she wants to check that the carrots are gone, she simply needs to use permanent product and open Tyson's lunchbox and see if the carrots are gone. That makes the most sense. It's the simplest way. D, she can use discontinuous measurement. Well, she's not going to be using interval recording or momentary time sampling because she's not there measuring Tyson's actual behavior. She wants to see, are the carrots gone? And what makes the most sense is to simply check Tyson's lunchbox after school. Are the carrots gone? Yes or no? Which of the following strategies is not considered a punishment procedure in ABA? All right, pretty straightforward question to end it. A nice little fluency check. So we're looking for the following strategy that is not considered, keyword not, a punishment procedure. So A, is response cost a punishment procedure? It is. It's considered a negative punishment procedure. Now, we always want to make sure the behavior is actually changing, right? But in some instances, we do have interventions that are written as punishment, and a response cost is written as punishment. It's a negative punishment procedure where we remove a reinforcer. What about B, timeout? Well, yes, timeout from reinforcement, partition timeouts, timeout ribbons, a lot of different ways to implement timeout, but it is a punishment procedure. Remember, we're looking for the strategy that is not a punishment procedure. C, contingent exercise. Absolutely, right? And as an RBT, you don't necessarily need to know this term. So if you haven't heard it, that's okay. But contingent exercise is when you have exactly what it sounds like. You have someone engage in exercise contingent on a behavior. It's used as a punishment. So D, non-contingent reinforcement, is our only option left. So it has to be non-contingent reinforcement because, of course, non-contingent reinforcement isn't a punishment procedure. It's a reinforcement procedure. Reinforcement is delivered on a schedule, non-contingent on behavior or regardless of what behavior is occurring. What strategy is not considered a punishment procedure in ABA? Well, D, non-contingent reinforcement. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. Like, subscribe, spread the word. Let us know when you pass. Work hard, study hard, and we will see you soon.